Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel and this is the Hour of the Raven, your channel for everything Ravenloft, RPG, Dungeons and Dragons, and horror.
Today we will discover the past and secrets of Lord Wilfred Godfroy, the ghost of the House of the Gryphon Hill, and the Darklord of Mordent. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone that this video will focus on the Mordent from the classic Ravenloft setting, and will consider the events and characters that existed in the domain prior to the Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft reboot. At the end of my video coverage of Mordent from the classic Ravenloft setting, I will make some considerations and comparisons with the new version of Mordent in the Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft. Are you ready? In our search for answers and allies, we participate in a seance with the medium Michael Jandalis. The spirits of Mordent reveal dark secrets to us, but our session is invaded by a more sinister presence. The spectral figure of an imposing aristocrat towers over us, scolding us for our audacity in questioning his spirits, and then sending his ghostly hand upon us. We feel our life slipping under his touch, and his cold dead aura fills our body. Lord Wilfred Godfroy invades our minds in search of answers, and we also glimpse the horrors of his existence.
Hour of the Raven.
How dare you question the spirits of Mordent? Your insolence and curiosity deserve to be punished. I am the ruler of Mordent, the master of life and death. You will kneel before this spirit in eternal service, whether living or dead. Lord Wilfred Godfroy is the Dark Lord of Mordent, a ghost of an arrogant, cruel, misogynist, and murderous aristocrat who captures and enslaves the spirits of the dead in his haunted abode. The character of Lord Wilfred Godfroy adapts the theme of ghosts to the Ravenloft campaign setting, portraying hauntings of restless, tormented, and vengeful spirits that permeate so many legends and gothic tales. Its connection to the haunted House of the Gryphon Hill also portrays typical haunted mansion stories, drawing from the source of various haunting legends and tales. Wilfred Godfroy is a fourth magnitude ghost, and when he wishes to manifest his spectral presence, he assumes a translucent form, and his spectral body assumes the appearance it had before death. He appears to be a 70-year-old man, with a grey beard and hair. He is always dressed like a gentleman, in quality clothes that denote the fashion of the Mordent aristocracy from 200 years ago. His spectral form always manifests with his pince-nez glasses and his ebony cane with a metal top hat in the shape of a griffin. His gaze is cold and emotionless, unless when he is overcome by fury. His voice has a low baritone that usually denotes his contempt and arrogance. Wilfred Godfroy behaves with a noble etiquette, but has a quick temper, and is arrogant and cruel. He sees everyone around him as incompetent, whose existence is justified only to serve him. In the third edition of Ravenloft, in addition to be a powerful ghost, Lord Wilfred Godfroy also had 13 levels as an aristocrat. Wilfred has the patience of an immortal undead, and he uses his condition as a ghost to always have advantage over his enemies. He is able to fly, become invisible, and pass through solid objects, and uses these abilities to spy on his enemies, or to attack them when they least expect it. If engaged in combat, Godfroy is a terrible foe, and his touch can quickly age an enemy. His weapon of choice to strike his foe is his cane, and he delights in the feeling of fear his weapon causes in the living and the dead. He cannot be turned by clerical powers, and even if destroyed in combat, he will be totally reformed in the next day. Many believe he is imprisoned within the confines of the house of the Gryphon Hill, but this is a false legend that he likes to maintain, and at times he pretends to be unable to leave the property of the manor. The only way for he to be completely defeated is if the house of the Gryphon Hill is totally destroyed. Lord Wilfred has merged his essence with the house and uses the manor's cursed power to imprison other spirits and then subject them to torture and servitude. However, Wilfred Godfroy is a ghost that is haunted by the spirits of his wife and daughter. Every night they come after him, calling out his name and chasing him, until they rip out parts of his spectral body with their hands and bites. The proud ghost of Lord Wilfred is powerless against his wife and daughter, but he never lets another living creature or undead to witness his torment and his weakness. Wilfred Godfroy is the secret leader of Mordent, and most who inhabited that realm are unaware of his power. Though many fear the haunted house of the Gryphon Hill, the ghost of Wilfred is only a legend, and most are unaware of the extent of his evil influence over these lands, and the way he enslaves the spirits of Mordent. When the Darklord of Mordent decides to close the borders of his domain, the fog that covers Mordent rise, and all those who try to cross the mists immediately find themselves back in the lands of Mordent. But what horrors lurk in the past of the long-deceased Lord Wilfred Godfroy? What cruel crimes turned this proud aristocrat into a restless and implacable ghost? The story of Lord Wilfred Godfroy cannot be separated from the story of the ancient mansion that was the scene of his greatest crimes, and where he ended his mortal life. The house of the Gryphon Hill has always been surrounded by sinister and supernatural events, as if the very structure of the house was tainted by a thirst for blood and a primordial evil. The opulent building is ancient and was intended to be a mark of the prosperity of the Ronier family. The nobles originally charged with the task of colonizing and ruling the lands of Mordent. Situated on a hill on the outskirts of the city of Mordentshire, the imposing building was a symbol of power and wealth, overlooking the entire Arden Bay and the harbour area. Something evil had been around the building since the beginning, and strange and macabre accidents had occurred throughout the construction. Despite these setbacks, the mansion was completed, and the Ronier family moved into the imposing mansion. A few weeks later, however, the entire family fled in the middle of the night, claiming to have been attacked by supernatural forces, and never returned to the mansion. Since then, the house of the Gryphon Hill has gained a reputation for being haunted and ravaged by evil forces, which was only made worse when the Roniers showed signs of being corrupted in some way by this contact, and were revealed to be were-rats. The house of the Gryphon Hill remained mostly abandoned, but the few individuals who tried to occupy the manor soon abandoned this project, claiming that sinister forces were at work on the property. In its abandoned house, silence and stillness reigned, and the evil that inhabited there remained hungry and maddened, awaiting the return of new victims. The fall of the Roniers marked the rise to power of the Godfroy family, who were quick to reap the spoils of the fall of the Roniers, positioning themselves as leaders of Mordent and rulers of the Arden Bay region and Mordentshire. For centuries, its members succeeded each other as leaders of the aristocratic families of those lands, and their name was associated with efficient, fair and rigorous government. Although at times a member of the lineage would show signs of weakness, insanity, or incapacity, the gallery of ancestors is filled with notable leaders, administrators, and rulers. Despite this, the family's numbers were declining, and their heirs had fewer and fewer children, and even this mighty bloodline was doomed to end in tragedy. The last family member to bear the surname was Lord Wilfred Godfroy. Wilfred was raised to rule, and on his shoulders fell the obligation to prevent the end of his noble lineage, protecting the legacy of the Godfroy. His appreciation of etiquette and formalities hid a superb and arrogant man, capable of practicing any cruelty to achieve his goals. Wilfred was a very intelligent, erudite, and practical man. He believed that the superstitions of the people of Mordent represented the backwardness of the uneducated commoners. When he became the rightful owner of the house of the Gryphon Hill, he discarded the warnings of the fools who claimed the house had a sinister reputation, and moved in there. Everyone expected that the horrors of the house and strange tragedies would consume Lord Wilfred Godfroy, but to everyone's surprise, no supernatural manifestation came to reach the illustrious aristocrat, who continued to mock the fears of the superstitious. Perhaps the house of the Gryphon Hill found in Lord Wilfred an evil with which it established a strong connection, or maybe the evil lurking in those halls learned the value of patience and exerted his influence over the ruler of Mordent in a more subtle way. For years, Wilfred had consolidated his power and leadership in Mordent, but, reaching old age, he had been unable to obtain a son to carry the Godfrey legacy. His hope came through an alliance with the Weathermaid family, an aristocrat family from the city of Mordentshire, with whom his family had numerous marital ties in the past. Lord Wilfred was more than 60 years old when he married the beautiful and young Estelle Weathermaid, with the hope that she would give him a son to carry on his legacy. The marriage was cold and devoid of love. However, other less noble feelings soon came to blossom between the couple. The union soon resulted in a child, and Estelle Weathermaid gave birth to young Lydia Godfroy. Wilfred saw the birth of his daughter as an affront to his authority, as her very existence was a challenge to his desire for a male heir to carry on the family legacy. The child received nothing of her father but contempt. Over the next few years, he came to view his wife's inability to bear him a male child as an affront, and their relationship quickly deteriorated. More than that, the aging Lord Wilfred, now in his 70s, believed that his wife had somehow betrayed him, and that she desired other younger men. One day, after believing that his wife had disrespected him by exchanging looks with another man, Lord Wilfred Godfroy was overcome by jealousy and murderous rage, and attacked his wife with heavy blows with his ebony cane with a metal griffin head. While Estelle was brutally beaten, the young child Lydia came to protect her mother and placed herself between Wilfred and Estelle. Yelling at her father to stop and saying how she hated him, the child ended up suffering the wrath of Wilfred, who continued to deliver his blows, killing both mother and daughter in a fit of murderous rage. No one had witnessed his crime, and Lord Godfrey quickly thought of how to cover up his murder. He brought the bodies to the stables, and used his gun to shoot in the head his most prized and preferred stallion. To all, he related that his family had been killed in an accident, when his prized horse, crazed and out of control, had trampled his wife and daughter. The killing of the valuable animal, in the word of a powerful aristocrat, would be proof enough of his version. Lord Wilfred's story aroused suspicion, but no one dared to challenge his version of events. Shortly thereafter, Estelle and Lydia's bodies were buried in a small cemetery on the property of the House of the Gryphon Hill, and Lord Wilfred returned to the manor. Freed from the wife and daughter he had come to hate, Wilfred was happy with the time, peace and silence he now had. His tranquility was short-lived, however. The night after his family funeral, and each night thereafter, Lord Wilfred began to hear strange sounds and wails, and witnessed many paranormal phenomena. Soon, the spectre of his wife and daughter came to torment him, haunting the murderous aristocrat for his crimes. Lord Wilfred endured his family constant night hauntings for a year, until, at the dawn of the first day of the year 579 of the Barovian calendar, he committed suicide in the house of the Gryphon Hill, putting an end to his lineage. He confessed his crimes in a letter, stating that he was haunted by the ghosts of his wife and daughters, and, as his last request, he wanted his body to be buried in the Weathermay family mausoleum, away from the graves of his wife and daughter. His request was granted, but Lord Wilfred found no rest in the afterlife. He soon discovered that he had become a ghost, an undead incorporeal creature, and that he had an eternity of an empty existence ahead of him, haunting an empty mausoleum. At last, the spirits of his wife and daughter remained in the house of the Gryphon Hill, and he was free from his torments. With no other Godfroy to heir the title, the leadership and rule of those lands fell to the Weathermay family, with whom the Godfroys had marital ties, and Lord Byron Weathermay assumed the title and property. That same year, the Weathermay family would face one of their greatest challenges, and Mordent would be forever changed, being swallowed up by the mists. Shortly after the death of Lord Wilfred Godfroy, the Weathermay family rented the house of the Gryphon Hill to a foreigner named Strad von Zarovich, who claimed to be an alchemist, and sought the seclusion of the manor to concentrate on his work. The alchemist was a brilliant man, but tormented by dark thoughts and terrible dreams, as if his mind or soul were shared by some macabre entity. His project involved the construction of a machine called apparatus, capable of separating and transferring the soul and essence of an individual. Driven by madness, he used the machine on himself and separated the dark essence that tormented his soul. This experience also brought the alchemist into a state of stress, on the verge of madness. He left the house of the Gryphon Hill on a stormy night, and found shelter in the Weathermay mansion, with no lucid memories of what had happened. The alchemist and his dark counterpart had a direct relationship with Count Strad von Zarovich, and with the macabre experiments that he and Azalin Rex, until then his ally, carried out in Barovia to try to escape the demiplane of dread. Somehow, Count Strad and Azalin had managed to escape from Barovia to Mordent. They took the apparatus from the house of the Gryphon Hill to the Weathermay family mausoleum, and used the machine to exchange the souls of unfortunate Mordenshire denizens for dark creatures in the service of their masters. This entire sinister plot ended with a terrible conflict at the Weathermay family mausoleum. It resulted in the destruction of the alchemist and the infamous machine known as the apparatus, and the evil presence of Count Strad was returned to Barovia. Lord Wilfred Godfroy witnessed all of this as a ghost, without intervening in these events, Perhaps because he feared the mighty of the magic of the powerful arcane necromancers Count Strahd and Azalin Rex. These events marked the transition of Mordent to the demiplane of Dread, and the region was surrounded by the mists that covered its entire territory for months, isolating the region from contact with the world to which it previously belonged. The departure of Count Strahd and Azalin had left a great power vacuum, but the Dark Powers were quick to choose a new evil entity as ruler of these lands, and Lord Wilfred Godfroy ascended to the rank of Darklord of Mordent. Wilfred appreciated his rise to power and the connection he now held with the land of Mordent. Finally freed from the Weathermaid Mausoleum, he returned to the house of the Gryphon Hill, the ancestral manor and lair of the true rulers of Mordent. Though he was never truly confined within the walls of the house of the Gryphon Hill, Lord Godfrey became one with the sinister forces that exist there, and gave these dark forces a face, identity, and personality. His jubilation at the recognition of his position of authority and new powers lasted only for a day, however. As night fell, he began to feel supernatural presence hovering around in his ancestral home, defying his presence. It didn't take long for these hauntings to reveal themselves as the spirits of Stell and Lilia, his wife and daughter, who returned to torment him. Confident in his newfound powers, Wilfred confronted his family, only to find that they were beyond the reach of his powers, and watched in horror as the spirits of his wife and daughter ripped his spectral body with their hands and mouths, biting off parts of his spectral body, shattering his spirit. Each day he reforms his ghostly body and finds that not even walking away from the house of the Gryphon Hill offers him peace from these torments, and each night the vengeful spirits of his wife and daughter always return to haunt him in an eternal and endless torment. This tormented existence did nothing to diminish his cruelty. Though he has little interest in the affairs of the living, Godfroy takes cruel pleasure in imprisoning and enslaving spirits. He had discovered that the house of the Gryphon Hill is capable of exerting a powerful attraction to the spirits that approach it, and Godfroy had been monitoring the population of Mordent, especially around the city of Mordenshire, to capture and subdue the spirits of the recently deceased, dragging them to the house of the Gryphon Hill. Once on the property, they are forever imprisoned within its walls, and are victims of constant violence and torment at the hands of Lord Wilfred Godfroy, until they become his slaves for all eternity. Lord Godfroy can also be a terrible enemy to the living. Those who cross his path or challenge his interests become victims of a cruel game. He is not content to destroy his enemy directly, but delights in taking away everything they hold dear, shattering their hopes and dreams, and utterly ruining their lives. Only then, in their moment of greatest despair, will they be ready to be destroyed, and their weakened spirits will be beaten, subjugated, and enslaved for all eternity. Although he paid little attention to Mordent, lately Lord Wilfred has become much more active. About 10 years ago, a group of adventurers invaded the house of the Gryphon Hill, in an event that almost jeopardized the integrity of the house itself. Though he destroyed the invaders, Lord Wilfred decided to keep a closer watch on the living of Mordent, and to increase his power and influence. He closely follows the developments of a possible conflict in the Church of Ezra. Having discovered the existence of the prophecy of Lacrez, that the Church of Ezra sects of Darkon and Mordent would come into conflict, He had been accompanying and interfering to spur the coming of this conflict, aiming to obtain a large number of enslaved spirits when war and conflict reached the domain of Mordent. While he can spy on the populace as an unseen spirit, Wilfred Godfroy has also been recruiting spies from the ranks of the living. One of them is Daniel Foxgrove, the mayor of Mordentshire. Daniel is the son-in-law of Lord Jules Weathermay and was married to his daughter, Alice Weathermay, who unfortunately died giving birth to the twins Laurie and Jennifer Weathermay Foxgrove. Lord Wilfred Godfroy has enslaved Alice Weathermay's spirit and uses it to blackmail her former husband. But if Daniel obeys him, Lord Wilfred allows Alice Weathermay to leave the house of the Gryphon Hill for one night to visit her former husband. But if he disobeys, Alice's spirit falls victims to terrible torment at the hands of Godfroy. His main project today is the slow destruction of Lord Jules Weathermay, the leader of the family of power usurpers who took over as rulers after his death and the end of his lineage. He yearns to enslave the soul of the aging Lord Jules and awaits patiently as his body languishes to one day enslave the ruler's soul. Our minds and bodies are invaded by an evil presence, and we feel our life and youth are slowly slipping away. As the ghost of Lord Wilfred plague our minds, we also get glimpses of his macabre past. Our fate would have been sealed at that moment, had it not been for the intervention of the valiant sisters Jennifer and Laurie Weathermay Foxgrove. We remember few details of our possession, but we wake up some time later, exhausted and confused, in a bed. We realize with horror as we look in a mirror that our hair is now bleached white, with some of our youth stolen by Lord Wilfred's morbid touch. Soon, our hostesses come to meet us. The Weathermay sisters took over the legacy of the famous Dr. Rudolf van Richten, and have been monitoring our steps since he arrived at the old hunter's herb shop, looking for his whereabouts. When they heard our screams in the home of the medium Michael Gendalis, they came to our support, and with the use of a powerful magical artifact, they managed to save us from the possession of the consuming ghost. Join us, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, and together, let's meet the noble and valiant Weathermay family, which includes the rulers of Mordent and valiant adventurers and combatants against the forces of darkness. But before that, let's take a closer look at the new version of Lord Wilfred Godfroy and Mordent as presented in the Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft for the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons.